The space station Horizon 6 floated quietly in the blackness of space. It was large, shaped like a giant wheel, and slowly spinning near the edge of the Velari trade route. Stars blinked all around, and small ships came and went through the docking rings. Inside the station, life moved calmly, like the soft ticking of a clock. Tom stood near the window in docking bay 3, looking out at the stars. He wore his blue uniform for the last time. A small bag rested by his feet. After 5 long years, he was finally going home to Earth. He was a simple technician. He fixed systems, cleaned solar panels, and repaired broken comms. Nothing special, but he had become well known on the station, not for being fast or strong, but for always helping. When someone needed extra hands, Tom was there. When a young alien cadet cried from homesickness, Tom listened. When a power outage scared the younglings in the habitat ring, Tom lit up the place with small lights and made jokes until they laughed. End of duty, he whispered to himself. He smiled, but his heart felt heavy. He would miss this place. The smell of metal and clean air, the quiet hum of engines, the voices of many species speaking in peace. Footsteps came from behind, soft and light. Tom turned around. It was Mira. She stood there with her long silver robe, her pale eyes glowing. Softly, Mira belonged to the Velari race. She was tall, gentle, and always spoke in a calm voice. For most of her life, she worked as a translator between different alien groups, helping avoid misunderstandings. She had been on the station almost as long as Tom. They had shared many conversations over the years. Mira was curious about Earth, about human emotions, and about how humans reacted to danger. She would often sit with Tom in the observation deck, asking questions like, why do humans smile when they feel pain? Or why do humans sing even when they are afraid? Tom would laugh and try to answer in simple ways. But today, Mira's face looked different. She seemed nervous. She stood, with her hands behind her back, her head slightly tilted. Tom picked up his bag and gave a small nod. Hey, Mira, I guess this is goodbye. She looked at him for a moment. Then she said in a low voice, before I leave, I want to ask you something. Tom blinked. The station lights above flickered for a moment. His heart skipped a beat. The way she said it, it wasn't casual. It wasn't just a goodbye phrase. There was something in her voice, something serious, something heavy. What do you want to ask? He said, trying to stay calm. But Mira didn't answer. Instead, she gave him a small smile, turned around, and walked away down the hall. Tom stood frozen. His thoughts raced. What did she want to ask? Why now? Why did she look so serious? He had never seen her like this. He took a deep breath and followed. He passed the hallway to the medical deck, turned the corner past the water recycling unit, and entered the common room. No sign of her. He walked faster now, heading toward the cultural wing where the Velari quarters were located. A few alien officers passed by, giving Tom a wave or a nod. He barely noticed them. He finally found her standing alone in the garden chamber. It was a small room filled with floating plants from 10 different worlds. A gentle light shone down from above. It smelled of soft leaves and clean air. Mira was looking at a small earth plant, a bonsai tree that Tom had brought from home years ago. She touched one of its tiny branches with care. Tom stepped beside her. I don't like mysteries, he said with a smile. You said you wanted to ask me something. Don't disappear like that. Mira didn't look at him. She kept her eyes on the tree. Then she said, why do humans help those who are not their own kind? Tom blinked. He wasn't expecting that. What do you mean, you humans? She said quietly. You risk your lives for others, even for those from different species. You run into danger for strangers. You share your food. You take in orphans that do not even look like you. Why? Tom was silent. The question felt big. It wasn't something you could answer with just a few words. He sat down on the bench beside the tree. Mira sat next to him. I think, he said slowly, we do it because we know how it feels to be weak, to be scared. We've been through a lot on Earth. Wars, disasters, hunger. We learned that when we help others, we survive together. Mira looked at him now. Her eyes were soft but searching. But what do you gain from helping others who can never pay you back? Tom smiled. Not everything we do is about gain. Sometimes it just feels right. That's enough. They sat in silence for a while. Tom looked at her. Why are you asking me this now? She stood up. Her voice became even softer. Because I may need to act like a human soon, and I'm not sure I can. Tom stood too. What do you mean? But she shook her head. Not yet. I must go. You'll know soon. And with that, she walked out of the garden, leaving Tom once again full of questions. He stared at the little bonsai tree. His fingers touched one of its small leaves. Something was changing. He could feel it. Whatever Mira was planning, it was important, and somehow, he was now part of it. Tom could not sleep that night. He lay on his small bunk inside the guest's quarter, staring at the ceiling. The soft hum of the station's life support system filled the air. It was usually calming, but tonight, it only made the silence feel heavier. Mira's question kept repeating in his mind. Why do humans help those who are not their own kind? And then her strange words, I may need to act like a human soon. He turned on his side and looked at the small travel bag he had packed. It was sitting quietly beside the door. His name tag still hung from the handle. He was supposed to board the next shuttle to Earth in the morning, but something told him this wasn't over. Tom stood up, pulled on his station uniform, and stepped out into the hallway. The lights were dim, set to night mode. Most crew members were asleep. He walked slowly toward the observation deck, the place where he and Mira had shared so many talks before. When he reached the large glass dome, he found it empty. The stars stretched far and wide across the darkness. Below, a distant planet glowed blue and green. He sat down on the bench where Mira often sat. He remembered how curious she used to be. She asked questions about Earth food, human music, and strange customs like birthdays and jokes. But her favorite topic had always been human bravery. Why do you keep running toward danger? She had asked once, because someone might be trapped inside. He had answered with a grin. He smiled now at the memory, but it faded quickly. There had been something different in her voice today. This wasn't just curiosity anymore. She was thinking about doing something big, something dangerous. He had to know what it was. The next morning, Tom went to the Velari wing of the station. He passed through long silver halls with glowing panels. Velari officers walked calmly, nodding at him with their usual quiet respect. He stopped outside Mira's quarters and rang the bell. No answer. He rang again, still nothing. Then a young Velari officer passed by and stopped. Are you looking for Mira? She asked politely. Double quotes, yes. I just wanted to say goodbye before I leave. The officer lowered her eyes. She's already gone. Tom froze. Gone? Where? She left in a private shuttle 3 hours ago. She did not say where she was going, only that it was important. Tom's heart dropped. Did she leave a message for me? The officer shook her head gently. No message, just silence. Tom stood there in the hallway for a long moment. Then he turned and walked back toward the central terminal. He needed answers. Inside the control center, Tom accessed the shuttle logs. He still had access for a few more hours before his clearance expired. He searched Mira's name. There it was, Shuttle Aster 9. Departure time, 0430. Destination, classified. Coordinates hidden. Tom frowned. Why would a translator get access to a hidden flight plan? Then he looked deeper into the records. A strange detail caught his eye. The shuttle had passed through a known conflict zone, the edge of the Vork Rift. That area was known for political tension. Two alien factions had been fighting over it for decades. Peace talks had failed many times. It wasn't a place for travelers. It wasn't a place for peacekeepers either, not unless they were desperate. Why would Mira go there? Tom leaned back in his chair. He remembered how she once told him that her people were known for staying out of wars. The Velari believed in peace through silence, not action. They only observed. They never interfered. And yet, Mira had always been different. She had spent years talking to humans, watching how they acted, learning how they lived. Maybe it had changed her more than he thought. Tom left the control center and walked back to the garden chamber. The little bonsai tree was still there. Its leaves glowed softly under the light. He sat beside it again, just like the night before. Mira's voice echoed in his memory. Would you risk yourself for someone who cannot repay you? Tom now understood what she was really asking. She wasn't speaking in theory. She was asking if she should take a step that her people would never allow. She was asking if human courage could live inside someone like her, and he had given her the answer. Yes. He looked out the nearby window. Somewhere out there, Mira was flying toward danger. She might already be in trouble, and no one on this station even knew where she had gone. Tom stood up. His shuttle to Earth was in 2 hours, but Earth could wait. He returned to the docking bay and found a familiar face, Captain Rel, a gray-skinned alien from the Tolari species. He was in charge of ship traffic. Tom, Rel said, surprised. I thought you were leaving today. I was, Tom said, walking quickly to the control panel. I need a scout ship. Rel raised a brow. You know I can't just give you a ship without a mission order. I know, Tom said, but this is personal. Someone might be in danger. Rel frowned. You're talking about Mira. Tom looked him in the eye. She's heading into a war zone. Alone. No one's stopping her. I can't just walk away. Rel sighed. You humans always chasing trouble. He looked at the board, hesitated, then nodded. Dock 5. Ship Silverwing. She's fueled and ready. Tom gave him a grateful smile. Thank you. Just don't get yourself killed, Rel muttered. I don't want paperwork. 15 minutes later, Tom was inside the cockpit of the Silverwing. The engines hummed. The navigation screen lit up. He pulled up the last signal from Mira's shuttle and traced its path. Then he marked a course toward the Vork Rift. His hands moved fast over the controls. His heart beat louder with each passing second. As the ship lifted off and left the station behind, he whispered to himself, wherever you're going, Mira, I'm coming. The stars stretched out before him like a wide road. And somewhere down that road, a quiet voice had asked a simple question. Tom didn't know all the answers, but he knew one thing: he couldn't let her face it alone. The stars outside the Silverwing shimmered as Tom guided the small scout ship through deep space. The blackness around him was endless, silent, and cold. He watched the blinking dot on the screen. It was Mira's shuttle, marked by its last known path. She was headed toward the Vork Rift, a place no peaceful traveler wanted to enter. Tom knew the risks. The Vork Rift was full of conflict. 2 alien races, the Garnak and the Jorians, had fought over the system's planets for years. There were no safe ports, no patrols, and no peace. Even military ships avoided the area unless they had a clear reason. But Mira had gone alone, and that meant something big was happening. Tom sat in the pilot's seat, eyes locked on the data screen. He didn't know her full plan. But one thing was clear: she believed her mission mattered, and she believed in what humans stood for, enough to ask that strange question before she left. He remembered her voice, soft, careful, but serious. Would you risk yourself for someone who cannot repay you? Tom had said yes, and now he was living that answer. Hours passed. The Silverwing moved deeper into the rift. The space around him began to change. Wreckage floated nearby: broken ships, shattered drones, pieces of metal turning slowly in zero gravity. Warnings flashed on the screen, signals crossed. There were military broadcasts in different alien languages. Most were warnings to stay away. Tom checked his scans. A weak energy signal was ahead. It matched Mira's shuttle. He leaned forward. She wasn't far now. As he got closer, he saw something that made his heart tighten. Mira's shuttle was spinning slowly in space. The back engine was damaged. Smoke drifted from one side. Lights blinked faintly. She had clearly been attacked. Tom brought the Silverwing near and hailed her. Mira, it's Tom. Can you hear me? No answer. He tried again. Still nothing. He activated the ship's docking arm and pulled her shuttle toward his airlock. Once they were connected, he moved fast. He grabbed a toolkit, unlocked the hatch, and entered Mira's ship. Inside, it was dark and silent. Hello? He called out, A soft sound came from the corner. He turned and saw Mira sitting on the floor. Her robe was torn, and her hand pressed against a small burn on her arm. "Tom," she whispered, "you shouldn't be here." He dropped to one knee beside her. "You're hurt. What happened?" She tried to stand. "I was intercepted by a Jorian patrol. They scanned me, saw I was Velari, and let me go. But then a Garnic scout ship attacked. They thought I was carrying weapons." Tom helped her stand and led her into the Silver Wing. Once she was resting in the co-pilot seat, he cleaned her wound and gave her water. "Mira," he said, "you need to tell me everything. Why did you come here?" She looked at him, her pale eyes seemed tired, but determined. "There's a group on one of the moons," she said. "They're not soldiers. They're children, survivors from both sides, Garnic and Jorian. After one of the early battles, some ships crashed. A small group of young ones was left behind." Tom's eyes widened. "Children? Alone? For how long?" "Almost 2 years," she said. "They were hiding. A Jorian nurse found them first, then a Garnic medic. Both disobeyed orders and stayed. They've kept the children alive in secret, but their supplies are almost gone, and if either army finds them, they might not survive." Tom leaned back in his seat. He couldn't believe it. "And you came here to help them?" Mira nodded. "The Velari High Council refused to send aid. They said it would break our neutral status. But I couldn't forget what you said about doing what's right, even when no one's watching." Tom felt a strange mix of pride and fear. "You were going to help them all by yourself." She nodded again. "I brought food, water packs, and a translator beacon. My plan was to land, give them supplies, and activate the beacon. That way, someone might come for them, someone who could protect them better than I could." Tom looked at her. "You really have changed." Mira smiled faintly. "I think I've learned something from you." Tom turned to the controls. He ran a scan of the area. "I'm picking up faint life signs on a small moon nearby. That must be where they are." Mira nodded. "Yes, that's the place." "Then let's go," Tom said. "We'll finish what you started, together." The Silver Wing approached the moon slowly. The surface was rocky, with deep shadows and broken ground. Tom kept the ship low, avoiding enemy signals. He landed near a small cave where the life signs were strongest. Mira stayed in the ship to rest while Tom took the supply pack and stepped outside. The air was thin, and the sky above was dark with stars. He moved toward the cave entrance and called out, "Hello? I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to help." For a moment, nothing happened. Then a small voice answered from inside. "Are you Velari?" "No," Tom said. "I'm human, but I'm with someone who cares about you." Slowly, a figure stepped out. It was a young Jorian girl. Her arms were thin, and her eyes were cautious. Behind her came two Garnic boys and a smaller Velari child. They all looked scared, but curious. Tom knelt down and opened the pack. "Food, water, medicine." He said, "There's more in my ship. We can help you." The girls stared at him. "You're human. Why would you help us?" Tom smiled gently. "Because that's what we do." Back on the Silver Wing, Mira watched from the window as the children stepped out into the open. One by one, she saw Tom kneel beside them, handing out food and speaking with care. Her heart felt full. This was why she had come. Not to change the war, but to save the forgotten ones, and she hadn't done it alone. The cave was no longer silent. Laughter echoed softly against the walls as the children sat together, eating the food Tom had brought. Their faces, once pale and tired, now showed signs of joy. Some of them hadn't tasted warm food in months. Others had never seen a human before and stared at Tom with wide eyes full of curiosity. Mira sat near the ship, her arms still wrapped in bandages, watching the scene. She had never seen such different children, Jorian, Garnic, Velari, sitting side by side without fear. It felt like a dream. Tom stepped out of the cave holding the smallest child, a Velari boy who had fallen asleep in his arms. He gently placed the child inside the Silver Wing and covered him with a soft blanket. "We should move them off this moon," Tom said quietly. "They're not safe here." Mira nodded. "But where can we take them if we go back toward the Jorian or Garnic sides? We'll be stopped. I know, Tom replied. That's what worries me. Back inside the ship, Tom activated the comms panel and scanned nearby channels. Most were encrypted military signals, but one caught his attention. It was a Garnic patrol, searching nearby areas. Their ship was just one jump away. He leaned back and frowned. They're close, too close. Mira stepped beside him. We can't outrun them with the children on board. Tom nodded. And we can't fight them either. This ship isn't built for combat. They looked at each other. There were no good choices. Suddenly, Mira had an idea. We can't go to them. But what if we bring someone to us? Tom turned to her. You mean call for help? She walked to the supply crate and pulled out the small device she had brought, the translator beacon. It was designed to send a message across neutral space, she explained. But if I adjust the signal, it can reach Horizon-6. Tom raised his eyebrows. You can do that. I think so, Mira said. But it will take a few hours to reprogram. Tom nodded. Do it. I'll keep watch outside. The moon's surface was quiet. Tom stood near the ship with a scanner in one hand and a stun rifle in the other. He didn't expect a full battle, but he had to be ready for anything. He thought of Earth. He thought of the last meal he had eaten on the station. He thought of how Mira had walked into the garden chamber and asked that one question. Now he was here, on a moon in the middle of a war zone, watching over children who belonged to enemy sides, helping an alien woman who had learned to think like a human. It made no sense to some, but it made all the sense in the world to him. Inside the Silver Wing, Mira worked quickly. She opened the beacon and adjusted the small crystal core. Her fingers moved with speed and care. The children sat around her, tired but calm. Some had never seen technology like this. One of the Garnic boys asked softly, Are we going to live? Mira looked up and smiled. Yes, you are. I promise. Suddenly, Tom's scanner beeped. A ship had entered orbit. He looked up and saw the dark shape of a Garnic patrol cruiser. Its engines glowed red as it passed above the moon. They found U.S., he whispered. He ran back into the ship. Mira, we have a problem. She looked at him with steady eyes. I just need 10 more minutes. Tom nodded and moved to the control panel. He activated the defense shield, a thin layer of energy that surrounded the ship. It wouldn't stop. Real weapons, but it might buy them a little time. Outside, the cruiser stopped and hovered in the sky. Then a deep voice came through the open frequency. Unidentified vessel. This is Commander Harvek of the Garnic Patrol. You are in restricted space. State your purpose. Tom pressed the comm button. This is Tom, a human from Earth. I am here on a peaceful mission. Earth has no permission to operate in this zone. The voice growled. Prepare to be boarded. Tom looked at Mira. I need more time, she said. Tom turned back to the comms. There are children on board. Garnic and Jorian, survivors. We are helping them. There was a long silence. Then the voice returned. Impossible. There are no survivors from the crash sites. There are, Tom replied. Come down and see for yourself. Another pause. Finally, the cruiser began to descend. Tom watched the screen. One smaller ship detached from the main cruiser and landed 50 meters away. The door opened. A tall Garnic officer stepped out, armored and armed. Behind him stood 2 soldiers. Tom walked outside, hands open. I'm not here to fight. The officer stared at him. Where are the children? Tom pointed to the ship. Inside, some were Garnic, some were Jorian. The officer hesitated, then gave a command. The 2 soldiers followed him toward the Scive or Wing. Inside, the children backed away in fear. Mira stood between them and the door. The officer stopped. His eyes landed on a young Garnic boy, then on a Jorian girl holding his hand. His voice cracked slightly. How is this possible? They've been hiding here for 2 years. Mira said, kept alive by those who chose peace. The officer looked at Mira, then at Tom. He slowly lowered his weapon. This must not be lost. Tom nodded. Then help us protect them. Minutes later, the beacon flashed green. Mira smiled. It's working. The signal is out. It's heading toward Horizon 6 now. Tom sighed with relief. They'll send help. The Garnic officer turned to his soldiers. Prepare to guard this site. No one enters without my word. The soldiers saluted. For the first time, Tom saw a change in the officer's face. Hope. As night fell on the moon, a camp was made. The Garnic cruiser stayed in orbit, keeping watch. The children slept peacefully inside the Silver Wing, safe and warm. Mira sat beside Tom on a rock near the ship. You came for me, she said softly. Tom smiled. You asked a question. I had to give you an answer. She looked up at the stars. I think I understand now what it means to be human. Tom glanced at her. And what does it mean? Mira smiled. It means you never walk away from someone who needs you, no matter who they are. Tom looked at her, then at the children. Inside, he nodded. Double quotes. Yes, that's exactly what it means. The sky above the small moon turned orange as the sun of the Vork system rose behind it. Inside the Silver Wing, the children slowly woke up. One by one, they stretched, smiled, and looked around with soft eyes. For the first time in many months, they had slept without fear. Tom stood outside the ship, checking the systems. Mira joined him, her arm still healing, but her spirit strong. They slept well, she said. Tom smiled. They know they're safe now. Not far from them, the Garnic officer, Commander Harvick, spoke with his two soldiers. They were setting up scanners and watching for any approaching threats. Do you think the message reached Horizon 6? Mira asked. Tom nodded. I believe it did. If not, they'll wonder where I went and come looking. Mira looked toward the sky. I hope they come soon. We've made enough noise already. Just then, a loud alarm rang from the Garnic cruiser. Above, Harvick touched his ear and spoke quickly in his native tongue. Then he turned toward Tom and Mira. We have incoming ships, he said. Jorian warcraft, 3 of them, fast and armed. Tom's heart dropped. They're not coming to talk. Are they? Harvick shook his head. They think we're building a hidden base. We need to show them the truth, Mira said quickly. We need to show them the children. They won't stop to talk, Harvick replied. Not unless they're forced to. Tom looked up. Then we'll give them something they can't ignore. The 3 Jorian ships broke through the clouds. Their engines roared as they circled above the small moon. Inside the lead ship, weapons powered up. Tom ran inside the Silver Wing and opened a signal channel. Mira stood beside him. He spoke into the mic. This is Tom from Earth. I am not your enemy. We are protecting children Jorian, Garnic, and Velari. If you attack, you risk hurting your own. The Jorian ship sent back a short message. Earth human, step aside. This area belongs to the Jorian Empire. Tom pressed the mic again. Please, look closer. Come down. See what's really happening here. But there was no reply. The lead ship dropped lower. Weapons locked on target, Harvick shouted. Shields up. Tom's ship and the Garnic camp activated their weak defense systems. They were not strong enough to last a full attack. Inside the Silver Wing, the children began to cry. Mira moved quickly to calm them. Tom watched the radar. The enemy ships were almost in firing range. He made a choice. He ran outside and stood in the open. Harvick yelled after him. What are you doing? Tom raised his arms toward the sky. If they won't listen to words, he said, maybe they'll listen to actions. The lead Jorian ship hovered above him. A voice came through loudspeakers. Step aside, human. Tom didn't move. There are children here, he shouted, unarmed, afraid. If you fire, you will destroy your own people. There was silence. Then, slowly, the ship lowered more. A side door opened. A Jorian officer stepped out, his face hard and eyes cold. Soldiers followed behind him. He walked toward Tom, weapon in hand. Harvick and his guards stood ready, but Mira raised her hand. No weapons. Let him see the truth. Tom nodded. The Jorian officer stopped in front of him. You speak brave words, human. But this could be a trap. Tom pointed toward the ship. Come inside. See for yourself. Inside the Silver Wing, the children sat quietly, watching the officer. One small Jorian girl looked up at him. Her eyes were wide, her face thin. Are you from the stars? She asked. The officer stared at her, then at the others. He saw a Garnic boy sleeping beside a Jorian child, their hands touching. He lowered his weapon. These children, they are from both sides. Yes, Mira said. They have no war in their hearts, only fear and hope. The officer turned to the soldiers. Stand down. Back outside. Tom, Mira, Harvick, and the Jorian officer gathered in a circle. This war has taken much from us, the Jorian officer said, but it has not taken everything. Harvick nodded. If we can protect these young ones together, maybe we are not lost. Tom looked at them. It starts with one moment, one choice. Mira added, it starts with believing peace is still possible. The Jorian officer raised his wrist and sent a message, calling all nearby ships. Hold your fire. We have new orders. We are not the enemy today. Later that day, more ships arrived. Some were from Horizon 6, a peace patrol led by Captain. Rel came down, surprised to find Jorians and Garnic standing together. Medical teams treated the children. Food and blankets were shared. For the first time in years, soldiers from both sides stood in silence, not with weapons, but with questions. Tom and Mira stood on a high ridge, watching everything below. You were right to ask that question. Tom said. Mira smiled. You were right to answer it. He looked at her. You could have stayed safe, but you didn't. She looked back at him. I couldn't walk away. Not after everything I learned from you. Tom nodded. Then maybe this is just the beginning. That evening, as the sun set, the children sang a small song. It was a simple tune that Mira had taught them, a human melody, soft and full of hope. Tom sat beside her, listening. We did something good here, he said. Mira looked at him. Double quotes. Yes, but there's more to come. More voices to reach, more bridges to build. Tom smiled. Then we'll keep going. Together. Mira looked at the stars. Together. The peace camp on the moon had grown quieter. The children slept safely, guarded by soldiers from both Garnic and Jorian sides. The Silverwing sat ready to take them to safety. When the time came, Tom and Mira stood near the communication tower, watching the slow arrival of ships from Horizon 6. News of their mission had spread quickly. Leaders from different factions were sending representatives to see what was happening. Soon, two ships landed near the camp. One carried the Velari High Council delegation. The other brought a group of Garnic and Jorian politicians. All wore serious faces. Commander Harvick met them with calm respect. This is the place, he said. A Velari elder stepped forward, her robes shining softly. She looked at the children, then at Tom and Mira. You have done something unexpected, she said slowly. Something our people did not believe possible. Mira bowed her head. I acted on what I learned from humans. The elder's eyes narrowed slightly. Humans? Why do you trust their way? Mira looked at Tom. Because they believe in loyalty, sacrifice, and hope, she said, even when it seems impossible. Tom felt the weight of her words later. Inside the meeting hall built from the moon's stone and metal scraps, the leaders gathered. Tom and Mira stood together before them. One Garnic elder, his face marked with scars, spoke first. Your actions brought peace here. But how can we trust that humans truly understand our conflicts? That they will not use this moment for their own gain? Tom stepped forward. On Earth, we have many stories of sacrifice. One I want to share is about a small village during an old war. When a fire threatened the town, people did not wait for orders. They helped neighbors, even those they had never met. They did it because it was right, because they knew survival depends on trust. He looked around the room. That is the heart of humanity. We know what it means to lose, and that is why we choose to help. The room was silent. Mira then spoke softly. In my culture, neutrality is important. We believe in watching and listening, not interfering. But sometimes, silence means watching pain grow. Tom taught me that courage means standing up, even when it is hard. She paused. Together, we save children. But this peace can grow. We can build a future where enemies see each other as people, not just soldiers. The Velari elder looked at her with a mixture of respect and doubt. Our High Council may not approve, she said. Mira nodded. That is why we must speak louder, to remind them what we almost lost outside. The moon's sky was dark. Tom and Mira stood watching the stars. What will happen now? Tom asked. Mira sighed. The leaders will decide. Some will want war to continue, others will want peace. But we have planted a seed. Tom smiled. A seed that can grow into a forest. Mira looked at him. You humans inspire hope, even in the darkest places. The following days were full of talks, debates, and plans. Tom and Mira were asked to speak to soldiers and civilians alike. Their story became a symbol, the story of two people from different worlds who risked everything for the innocent. One afternoon, a young Orc soldier approached Tom. Your story reminds me of my brother, he said. He died fighting for a cause he did not believe in. Maybe now, we can fight for a cause worth living. Tom placed a hand on the soldier's shoulder. That is why we keep trying. Mira received a message from her people. The Villari High Council was displeased with her actions. They warned her to return home immediately or face punishment. She showed the message to Tom. I am ready to face what comes, she said. Tom looked at her with respect. Whatever happens, you have already changed many lives, she smiled, and you have given me courage. One evening, after a long day of speeches, Tom and Mira sat by the small garden on the moon. She looked at him and said quietly, Remember when I said I wanted to ask you something before I left? Tom nodded. Yes, she smiled softly. That question was never just about humans. It was about you. Tom's heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? He asked. Mira reached out and took his hand. I want to build something. Together, a future where we stand side by side, not just as friends, but as partners. Tom looked into her eyes. His heart was full. I want that too, he said. The moon's silent night held a promise, 2 different lives, 2 different worlds. Joined by hope, together, they would face whatever came next, because sometimes, one question changes everything. The sun rose slowly over the moon's rocky surface. The soft light spilled across the peace camp, casting long shadows from the scattered ships and tents. Children's laughter filled the air, a sound once rare in this troubled region. Tom and Mira stood at the edge of the camp, watching as the first group of children boarded a medical transport headed for Horizon 6. They waved goodbye, their faces bright with hope and trust. It was a moment of victory, but also the start of a new journey. The political meetings had lasted longer than expected. The Villari High Council remained wary, and some Garnic and Jorian leaders still pushed for war. But the story of the children and the courage of Tom and Mira could not be ignored. On the last day of the summit, the council agreed to establish a neutral zone around the moon, a place protected from conflict. They call it the Sanctuary of Hope. Tom smiled when he heard the news. It's a good start. Mira said softly. It is, Tom agreed. But it needs more than words. It needs people to believe. In the weeks that followed, the sanctuary became a symbol. Refugees from both sides arrived. Medics, teachers, and volunteers came from many worlds. The moon, once silent and dangerous, grew warm with life and purpose. Tom and Mira worked side by side, helping the children learn, play, and heal. They built schools and small homes from the station's supplies. They told stories of peace and courage. One evening, as they sat by a fire, Tom asked Mira, Do you remember the question you asked me before you left Horizon 6? She smiled. How could I forget? It changed everything. Tom looked at the stars. It was not just your question. It was ours. Together, we found the answer. Mira reached out, holding his hand gently. Yes, and now, we will face the future. Together, news of the sanctuary spread across the galaxy. It inspired others to act. Small conflicts eased. Trade routes reopened. Old enemies found reasons to talk. Leaders invited Tom and Mira to speak at forums and councils. They shared their story of bravery and hope, of risking everything to protect the innocent. At one gathering, a young diplomat asked Tom, How did humans learn to be so brave? To help strangers without asking for reward, Tom smiled and said, Because we know what it feels like to be helped, to be saved. We do it because we understand kindness is stronger than fear. The crowd applauded. Mira often stood beside him, sharing how her people had learned to truly listen to the voices of others. She spoke of courage that came from choosing to act. Even when it was difficult, together, they became voices for peace, reminders that no matter how different worlds may seem, the same heart beats inside all beings. One quiet night, Tom and Mira walked under the stars. The children were asleep in their new homes. The moon was peaceful. Mira stopped and looked at Tom. "Before I asked you that question," she said softly, "I was afraid of what it meant to be human. Afraid I could not live up to it." Tom smiled. "You did more than live up to it. You changed everything." She took his hand. "I want to stay by your side. To build a future not just for us, but for all who believe in hope." Tom pulled her close. "Then let's make that future." The galaxy watched as the sanctuary of hope grew. Tom and Mira's story was told in every corner, proof that even in darkness, light could shine. And it all began with one simple question. Before she left, Mira asked, "Why do humans help those who are not their own kind?" Her question made a heart freeze with excitement, because the answer showed that courage and kindness could change worlds. End of story.